All right, welcome back to another episode of Wish Talk. This is your host Parth Mehta, and today I have Aditya Pundir with us. He's the director of Climate Reality Project in India over the last 12 years, and he has extensively worked in sustainability and climate change for the last 20 years. He has also trained around 11,000 teachers in the country related to climate change and has also authored two books on natural World Heritage sites for UNESCO. And the long list goes on. So thank you so much, Aditya, for being here. Really appreciate it. So without further ado, let's just dive into the first question. How has your journey been in climate change? I saw your profile and I saw that you did your master's in business. So how did your journey came to climate change?
Yeah, thank you very much, Path, for giving me this opportunity to speak to you and to your audiences. And yes, it's so encouraging to see young people like you taking interest in climate change issues because I think this is the issue of the generation. And in case if we don't overcome this challenge in this next few years, then we are going into a path of like no return. So yeah, I've been. You are absolutely right. I have a business background, but of course, the seeds of environment were laid very early when I did my graduation in geology. But unfortunately, I could not pursue my geology career, and I got into business management, and then of course worked in corporate for some time.
Wow.
Set up an export business after that. But then around 2005 and 6, I started realizing that my passion for environment and seeing what's happening all around at that time I did not really understand it well, but things were happening and the answers, I was looking for some answers. So then in 2007 there was a movie called Inconvenient Truth of Al Gore, for which he got the Nobel Prize also for bringing up the awareness. So I saw this movie with my wife and kids, and I fell off my chair when I saw that movie.
Wow.
And we said, yeah, this is really something very serious happening. And by that time, when I was just working on different issues of environmental issues, I was working with animals, working with gardening, plants. So we said, why don't we focus on something which is so serious, like climate change? So me and my wife actually decided that we are going to focus on climate change, and she also encouraged me that you should work on climate change. And so that's how with my business, I started then taking more and more interest in climate change issues. And I probably built the first website for children at that time to build awareness for schools, which was picked up by a lot of schools. They started having a look at it. And then I also authored a few CD-ROMs on gardening and pets and all that. So that's how in 2009, I was invited to Australia by Mr. Gore's team, that is at the Climate Reality Project, to come and have a training with them in Melbourne. Okay. So I was really happy that, but well, I was trying to do this, and now I get the invite from the Climate Reality Project to be part for the training. So I went there and I underwent a training for 3 days with Climate Reality Project, which opened my eyes to all the three domains of the science, impacts, and solutions. Like Climate Reality is probably the world's best known organization which gives this type of a leadership training in climate change. So I came back to India and I started giving a lot of presentations to the people I knew. Then in 2010, I was approached by the Climate Reality Project that they said that they would like to set up a more, like in 2008, they had started working in India, but in 2010, they approached me. They wanted me to build the program in India. So since that time, I have been with the Climate Reality Project. Wow. Working on various issues.
So this is the time when like people started getting awareness that there is an issue there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is, the climate change, when we started working in India, we realized that India is such a massive country. So 1.3 billion people. So the model, peer-to-peer model doesn't work, that I invite 20 friends or 500 people and I lecture them on climate change. It doesn't work this way in this country because the country is just too big. You'll not even reach a drop of people. So that's the reason we thought that the best way to take this message of climate change, because it had both the things. The message was serious and the message was also complex. So it's not easily understood. So the best thing we thought was that we will engage the education system in the country. Like we have a very good school, college network, and our schools, you can see right down to village taluka level, you have the schools. So we thought, why don't we start working with teachers and work on the climate education part and build their capacity inside the institution so that they can then talk to the children, they can talk to the community, They can talk to the people around them, because in India, teachers are given a lot of people really want to hear it from a teacher, especially if you go down the villages and smaller towns. They really
Yeah.
have a position where they are the people who really tell, opinion leaders. So that's how we started working with them, and it's been quite satisfactory journey. Like, we have done more than 11,000 teachers all over the country. It's not only specific to Delhi, all over the country we've
So
done.
I have a question, like what was that like? Because you're saying that you went into rural areas and majority chunk of these people are like, they are not the most educated people. And this issue, even like the educated people don't understand. So how did you like convey them the message that, hey, this is something that's happening and this is what we need to work on?
Yes, definitely. It's a challenging topic, no doubt about it. But now, fortunately, there's a lot of information available. And when we started, the information was also not very much available on Google, and Google was not so prevalent. What we did was, firstly, we get the communication down to the local language. That's most important.
Okay.
Like in Maharashtra, we are working, so we are training in Marathi. So in Odisha, it's in Odia. In Hindi speaking belt, it's in Hindi.
Okay.
So we try to speak in the local language. That's number one thing, most important thing, because if you don't speak in local language, you start talking in English, then you are going nowhere. Then we started developing material which is relevant to them. Like, we got multimedia done. Like, way back in 2010, when there was no Coursera and edX, we got an online program done with multimedia, which in a very simplified way took the teachers through three process of what is the science of climate change, what are the impacts of climate change, and what are the solutions of climate change. So we took them, and then we helped them in developing material also. Like, for example, in villages, as you're talking about smaller cities, like the teachers, wherever you go in the country, they're overburdened with work.
100%.
They are really busy people. So we started developing a lot of worksheets, a lot of booklets for them to assist them. I have myself written 8 comics on environmental issues for children to help them get this nearer to what they love reading comics and all. So so we're developing a lot of stuff which is very relevant. Like, we've been using social media for informing. So this is the things we use. We try to develop content also around our climate education, and it also is very, very local, you can say. It's not very specific. Like, we're not only talking about polar bears and things that are happening from distant lands. We're trying to bring through climate education that people can, of course, they should have an idea about what's happening globally to have to know the seriousness of the issue. But then they should also be micro, like they should know what's happening in their region, because climate is regional issue also. Like, if I am in Delhi, the NCR would be very critical for me. If I'm up in north in Dehradun, it will be probably that valley would be interest. If I'm down in Maharashtra, probably in Satara and Sangli, Kolhapur region. So that micro area, what are the problems, climate issues out there, that will be relevant for me. So that's what we're trying to do.
So like going into the places and like focusing on those micro issues.
Helping them understand that how they can think it through, building their critical abilities, like through the exercises, both of the teachers as well as the students, because all the interaction has to happen with students and community. And that's the reason we actually have a Green Campus program, which we started in 2018. This was a more transformative program. Like, first was teachers education, we started teachers training. That was quite good. But then we thought in 2018, we took it a step ahead. We started, why don't we bring a transformation into the school itself or the university itself? So the Green Campus program was born, where we work on the 5 things the education network works on. Like, we work on the energy part. That is they put solar, they replace the devices, they put energy efficient devices. Then secondly, they work on water. Like, most of the country is water deficit. So we are insisting on whoever joins our Green Campus program, they got to have rainwater harvesting, and we check it out. It's all audit. It's not that you only do it. We handhold them, we give them the know-how, and then we check it out. So as I said, first is the energy part, then the second is the rainwater harvesting part, where we want them to do the rainwater harvesting. Then third thing we really work on is waste management, because waste is a big issue, and food waste is an even bigger issue. So how to cut down on forced waste, behavioral issues. Then trying to get them, like for example, 2 bins in every class, so that children learn from early age how to segregate green bin and the blue bin. Then having a compost pit, at least 2 compost pit in each campus. So the organic composting also happens. So this becomes again a very critical issue. Like, we measure the amount of waste we are producing and all. Then of course the fourth thing is the greening of the campus, like trying to have as much of greens as possible. especially in cities. Rural children are very smart. They understand all the trees and plants around, but in cities, a lot of places we are losing the connect. So what we are trying to do is make the children understand, okay, these are the trees, the labeling of the trees, building a butterfly garden, building a herbal garden. Like herbal garden has become a big rage now after in a few last few years, and people want to have tulsi and all this ginger and all the plants there to make the children aware about what our heritage is as far as these plants are concerned. So this becomes a major issue, like teaching. And then we are also requesting all our green campuses to at least have 1,000 trees every year to have a nursery, and then they can give it to the community.
Wow.
So this is what we are experimenting
So a lot
now.
of educational stuff that's
Yeah.
happening.
And fifth is the last component is the air quality and health.
Okay.
So that we are working on with schools, like advising them how to reduce this air pollution you see all around. So putting plants inside your room, having those like vertical gardens, so that you have leaves, etc., which are doing some purification of the vertical gardens, and where you don't have space. And so air quality, how to minimize that role of dust, teaching children how to measure air quality. That's very important. Like in some cities, they have really started measuring the air quality from the apps now.
Wow.
So, and making them understand, because if you measure something, you can control it. If you don't measure it, you don't know. You'll just say this is bad, this is good. But then what is good and what is bad? The government of India has proper standards. So making them understand the standards so that they also feel like to do something, improve on it. Then promoting transportation to school through cycles, through public buses. That's the objective. So this program has got very good response. Despite COVID coming in 2020, we already got a pledge from about 1,000 institutions. It's like I'm quite amazed by the response. Like I'm really happy to say that the people are really taking interest. Like the education network is suddenly, and they've got up and they're sitting up and saying, yes, we want to do something.
Wow, that's amazing. So changing gears a bit, I love the journey that you explain. I love the work that Climate Reality is doing. But like really, going into the basics and making the youth understand what is the climate change. Like, how do you explain it in the simplest possible way? Because we all are like young right now, right?
Yeah.
And personally, like when I talk to people about climate change, most of the time it's like laughed about, not laughed about, but it's like they consider it a trivial issue. It's like, yeah, it will happen. We'll see. Right now, I just want to make money or party or something like that. So how do we like get it into their heads that this is something that's happening right now?
Yes. See, climate change, to make it really simple, like I'll not get into any technical jargon. Like you see, our Earth's climate is very stable. Like because if like if you see the Earth's temperature, like it's very stable at around 15 degrees centigrade, we can say. So that's because of the exchange of heat. Like for example, the sun's energy comes, we all are living because of the sun's energy. Some of it gets reflected back, and some of it heats the Earth. Then Earth also radiates that heat back, and that is trapped by the atmosphere. So that actually keeps nice temperature. Like in winter, like we have started wearing jacket. So it's like these greenhouse gases which are there, and there's which help to keep Earth's temperature at a certain degree, like you would say an average 15 degrees. That's all so it's a very stable temperature. So one thing I think in climate change we must try to understand is that Earth's temperature has been very stable in the last few million years, which we know about. And this stable temperature, Earth is a huge body. So now these greenhouse gases are critical as far as our atmospheres go. So they help us in keeping that temperature at that particular, because they absorb this heat going out of Earth. Now what is happening is, for the last so many thousands years which we have data, the carbon dioxide level, which is the main greenhouse gas, was around 280 parts per million. And today it's about 418. So
increase over.
Yes, so greenhouse gas, like you have, like in case it's a winter time, like I'm just in mild winter, I'm wearing a jacket. Now if you give me another big jacket to wear, I'll start sweating. So that's what has happened. We have literally gone from 280 to 418. So much of carbon dioxide is now there in the atmosphere, so it's trapping more heat. So that heat which should have just gone away, like day and night where you have cooling happens, that cooling is not happening. That heat is getting trapped due to these greenhouse gases. So that's the critical part, that because of this. And where are these greenhouse gases coming from? They're just about 200 years old, 150 to 200 years old, because since we got our steam and we started using oil, fossil fuels, coal. So millions like years, the earth had preserved those coal and petroleum. Suddenly we are burning it. We burnt it in the last 150 to 200 years.
Wow.
And we have taken the level from 280 to 418 parts per million.
In last 150 years?
Yes, it's just in the recent, and earth is a huge planet. Like it's like you make a cup of tea, it takes 10 minutes. Now imagine how can you heat up a planet which is as big as earth, and we have managed to do that. Now the earth's temperature is 1.2 more than the stable temperature I was talking about. So
1.2 degrees.
Yeah, so 1 degree temperature we've managed to raise of the earth, more than 1 degree. So you can imagine the kind of heat we are putting into the system. So that is one reason why the climate, because climate change is how the climate and weather would be over say a 30 years period. A stable climate, like you can always say in November it will be cold. If I ask you in Delhi what June, July, you say it will be hot, Aditya. And if I say what is March, you'll say yeah, it will be pleasant. March would be nice and pleasant, springtime, February. But what's happening now is the climate is changing. If you see this March, everybody will say it's a nice, pleasant. And what happened this year, 2022? We had the hottest March ever. We had incredibly hot March, 30 degrees plus temperature. February was very hot. Probably one of the hottest months ever we had in 2022. So now the weather is changing. The monsoons, like example, we know that in India comes in June, goes back in early week of September. But what's happened this time? This time monsoon came in June, then vanished. Hardly any rain falling in June, July. Then now it's happening. Rain is happening in October, and it's pouring. Like for example, monsoon is pouring. It's not even those going back. It's pouring, flooding all over the place. It's flooding. So this is the change in weather, big long-term change in weather which has come. So this is climate change. When your weather and your climate, it changes over a long-term period of time, and people might, as you rightly said, your friends might say that okay, what difference does it make? 1 degree is a very small degree, but look the kind of energy which is putting it into the system. But you look at Earth as a whole, then 1 degree for me getting a temperature from 38 to 39 is okay, but look at the Earth. It's a huge system, the amount of energy which is coming out. So it is giving, like, it's disturbing our weather patterns, cyclones, heat, droughts. So many impacts are happening. So the world order of climate change is happening. And even I used to think, like what you said, that some people will say देखेंगे जब होगा, when we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But even I used to think that, to be very frank. In 2009, when I went for training, when I came back, I used to always say, this is going to happen 70, 80, 100 years back in my great grandchildren. I'm trying to do that for them. So I used to proclaim that. But no, it's happening in a lifetime. It's happening now. Like in 10 years, I'm seeing that journey which I was thinking of 100 years. And the scientists are also now, all the reports which we see, they say, well, we really underestimated. So what's happening now today is severe. It is like alarming, I would say. Like that's why we stopped calling it climate change. We now call it a climate emergency. Because now things are really going bad. And if we don't apply the brakes now, then it will be a free for all in coming times.
Are there brakes, do you think?
Yes, definitely. There are a lot of things. Like as I told you, the biggest culprit in the whole thing is how much carbon dioxide and methane and all these greenhouse gases we are putting in the atmosphere. If we can get them down, like if we can mitigate them, if we can get them down, so this is the first thing we can do. And of course, we have to change our behavior. We have to change the way we work. So these will be some of the solutions of climate change in coming times. Like the most important thing is modernizing, like decarbonizing the way we produce electricity. Like today, the world electricity is made by coal and fuel and oil. So we have to decarbonize it, take it to renewables. We have solar, it's free, it's clean. Similarly, wind energy. So renewables, moving towards renewables from this fossil fuels based this is about energy part. Now let's talk about the industry part. So again, in industry moving away, that would be again a good thing. Like in case if we are able to cement, iron, like these are the industries where a lot of greenhouse gases come. So improving out here, like substituting the systems. Then transportation is huge. The kind of greenhouse gases, like all the tailpipes are putting out greenhouse gases every day, millions of it. Like you can see, it's Delhi, it's a haze everywhere. So then moving to electric vehicles and all those things are one of the solutions. So basically energy, shifting the energy, doing a little bit of change in the agriculture, diet habits. So all these things are going to make a difference. I'm not saying that there's no hope. If there was no hope, then we would all be make merry. Then what's the point then working on it? But yes, there is hope.
Yeah. Awesome. Let's talk about, like, you said that this is severe right now. So are you seeing, like, being in this field, the impact of climate change in India, like right now? What are the changes you've seen in the last 20 years you've been working?
Well, India is one of, you can say, one of those countries which is very badly impacted by climate change. Like, already, like in the South Asia region, I look after the whole South Asia region, like because climate change does not respect any boundaries. So India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, all this region, as I would say, so the South Asia region, Afghanistan included, is undergoing a lot of climate impacts. To begin with, like as I told you, in the past, like the monsoons, as I already talked to you about, that monsoons have got disturbed. And if you see that the number of heat waves is really increasing.
Yeah.
Like this time we started having literally a summer, like we didn't have any winter. Like suddenly you December, January, then you have suddenly February, and you have it's like a summer temperature. Everybody, the jackets are put, everything is put aside. So the heat waves is one critical thing which is happening. We had, I think, about 280 heat waves this year. So this this phenomenal. Like we never had so many heat waves and so many hot days.
How many are permissible? Like, what's the okayish number that you would say?
The okayish number is less than 1/3 of this. So for example, like you have the heat waves only start happening May, June onwards, but they don't start happening March onwards, because then you have continuously high temperature. The heat wave comes when you have a continuous high temperature by a certain amount. So that has been happening since March this time. So one heat after another. One place, this today is in Himachal, now it's in Uttarakhand, now it's in Delhi, North India, now it's happening down in the Madhya Pradesh. So like heat waves everywhere. Then we had so many floods, like we had floods in Assam, which were very intense. Bangalore has been flooded thrice in this year.
Yeah.
The Chennai floods, I think, are like Chennai has had so many bad floods in back 2015. Mumbai, 2017.
But is that a different like issue because they are the coastal line? So
no. This is, see, what is happening because of climate change is like that. There you can say, as far as two type of direct impacts, in case you're talking about precipitation, so or flooding. So I would say there were three things which are determining this. Number one is, like, about, for example, as I said, there's so much of heat coming. This heat is being taken by the oceans. Now, when oceans absorb this heat, they give this heat to the cyclones. So the cyclones, when they are coming, they are much more stronger and much more wetter. So like what happened Taukte, like the Taukte which hit the Arabian Sea, which it doesn't have. So it just narrowly missed Mumbai. It went and hit Gujarat. Otherwise, it's a super cyclone, and they've got massive rains in 2000s. When Taukte came, Mumbai had a massive rain event. So these are one type of rain events which are happening. The second thing which is happening because of this climate change is extreme events. Now, extreme events are different from the cyclone event. Like cyclone events, you can say this is a cyclone coming and that's happening. Extreme event, the biggest problem is it happens very suddenly. It's like a cloud burst. Like you happened in 2013, if you remember, in Uttarakhand, when in Kedarnath we had this lake burst, because it kept raining there was the right conditions were there. It kept raining the whole day, whole night in Uttarakhand, and the lake just could not take the pressure of that water, and it burst. So this type of events, like, and again in Bangalore you had a cloud burst event. In Kerala you had one.
In Bangalore there was a cloud burst?
Yeah, much. When we had the Bangalore floods, we had.
Yeah.
So again, it was a local event. Like it was. So what is happening in extreme events is that extreme events, you cannot really say that it's not cyclonic. So in cyclone also you can have an extreme event, but otherwise these are independent of cyclone. It can just happen either. It could be very sudden development. It's raining, it becomes a severe. Then you have a, like I think last month in Uttarakhand there were, I think, 7 to 8 cloudburst event. In Himachal Pradesh we had last month this cloudburst event.
Wow.
So if you go through the I think the atlas, I think every second day they are having some event or the other climate event happening. So it's becoming so severe and it's becoming so frequent now. So these extreme events, flooding, and has become extremely frequent, and it's also becoming very disastrous. Like kind of Hyderabad, if you remember. If you must have seen Hyderabad, the way Hyderabad was flooded. So these events are getting the third, of course, coastal region, since you talked about. When we talk about a coastal region gets flooded, of course, because of cyclones. One extreme event can also happen. The third thing which is happening in the coastal region is the sea surges. Like, for example, when the cyclones are coming, because the sea level is rising, so we have to take it into account. Now the sea level is on the rise, so these type of flooding events will become very frequent in the coming times. So the storm surges.
कितना time है? कितना timeline?
We don't have much time now, actually, because the way the ice is melting in Greenland and it's in Antarctica. So if you go through the reports of IPCC, like anything like everybody's talking about at least about a meter. That's what is going to happen in case if we don't do anything about it. Like the lot of places, like especially India's Mumbai, Chennai, and sorry, this Kolkata. Kolkata is number one, and Mumbai and Bangladesh, Dhaka. So these are the cities, Gwangju in China. Like, these are cities which are really under pressure, and they're the ones where already the sea level rise is there. And a lot of countries like Maldives, countries like Miami in US, like all the small specific islands, all these people are suffering from the sea level rise. Because when the sea's level is rising, there's more water. This water is coming inside, and then you have a storm coming, like a cyclone coming. So that water comes much more inside. So it will be much more destructive, it will be much more dangerous.
Interesting. Let's talk about COP26.
Okay.
What is the aim of that? I know there are some set of guidelines that were set for India. Has India been following them in terms of climate change? And what was the whole aim behind this entire event? Because this is one of the biggest climate events that happened.
Yeah, you're right. See, COPs are basically these meetings. As I told you, once the seriousness of climate change was known to everyone, that this is, yes, it's something really bad and it's going to take us all down as a humanity. So in you can say to about 1992, the UNFCCC was formed, and they started working on this concept of this getting all the parties together, like all the countries together, to get them in one place and make them talk to each other and explain to them what all the scientists are saying, that this has happened. So COP started this way, and as you rightly said, the COP26 was in Glasgow last year, and this COP is going to happen next week. Is going to happen in Egypt, 27, that is. In COP26, what happened was there's a lot of talking now, because the world is the politics of climate change is more or less divided into the developed world, who have enjoyed the fossil fuels and really got developed because of that, and the developing world now, which is feeling challenged because now they're being restricted. They're being told not to do certain things, and they don't have the finance also to do it, which is, I think, a case of climate justice. Like, people who have done it are not getting the negative impact. People who have done nothing are the ones who are being impacted the most. So there's a lot of politics around now climate change, which divides the world. So it's not a house in order where everybody is thinking the same way, and the differences and the schisms is going greater with every time, with passing time. Because what the developing world is asking for is that everybody should follow the same norm. We should get down the climate change. We should stop it. While the countries which are developing are saying, some are saying, we are developing, we need the energy. Okay, then you give us finance, or you give us funds, because there's a lot of damage happening to the countries. Like, you see Pakistan, so badly damaged by floods. So this finance is what they have been talking about. So in COP26 also, there were a lot of discussions around this. There were a lot of discussions around, like, how do we come out to a thing. So coal was something which was discussed. Coal, that they wanted the coal to be for India also. So they wanted to phase out coal by 2030. But India was not agreeing to it. They said, no, you can't we can phase down but not out. So that's what India wanted. But fortunately, it was agreed, because India said, we want to get a house in order, because India and China still are coal dependent. Then another thing which they did in COP was they want, in COP, they decided that the NDCs, like, for example, the targets, I would make it too easy to understand. The targets, like every country saying, okay, I'll do this much for the climate change. So those targets they are finding is not suitable for what we are looking at, 1.5 degrees. So they want to raise ambition. So this is something, again, which was discussed that heavily, that why don't we raise our ambition and review the whole process. So in COP27, they will be discussing most probably the ambition raising. because we have to stop it at 1.5. 2 degrees again might be too much.
Hmm.
The third thing again, which came out majorly in the COP26 was methane, the role of methane. Like methane has been hiding under carbon dioxide, though people talked about it.
Yeah.
But how serious is it? Nobody was talking. Like methane is so serious that in the 20 years period, if you take with carbon dioxide, it has got a global potential of 80 times warming. So it's
Wow.
really a powerful greenhouse gas, and it's lots of it in the atmosphere. So, and we are producing a lot of methane, whether it is through oil, fossil fuel industry, whether it's through farming practices. So a lot of this methane is being produced. So methane also became a target. And this is probably one success story of Glasgow, was that 100 countries agreed that, okay, fine, we'll work on methane. So then, of course, finance was discussed, like ambition raising, because finance is just not enough. The finance which has been promised to the developing countries is just not going through. And again, the nature of finance is more like loans. So then you have to repay back. So that's not for development then. So the more for how the finance is to be, a lot of discussions happen in finance, and the developed world is promising now more money. So that's what something came out of it.
Yeah.
And loss and damage, we again, like what happens to a country which suffers climate impact, a poor country especially, where does it get money? Like it gets wiped out, 60% of GDP of an island gets wiped out. Now how do you reconstruct with the remaining 40%? So this is still on the table. So hopefully in COP27 they'll discuss it.
Yeah. But does India have a roadmap towards
Yes.
solving its like carbon emissions and climate change issues?
Yes, definitely. India is one of those few countries which has been doing pretty well in terms of, they have been raising ambition. Like in Glasgow, they were accusing India that ambition is not high enough. But I think the NDCs which India has given in August, like we submitted our what we plan to do. So it's a very ambitious thing. Like India is promising, because see, I'll tell you what the big target is. The big target is what the everybody wants is that by 2030, let's get the emissions down by 45%.
Okay.
So that's target number one. And target number two is let's have a net zero by 2050 if possible. So that in this case, probably we will be maintaining 1.5 degrees. Otherwise, 2 degrees and then beyond 3 degrees, anything can happen.
Wow.
So India has promised by 2030, they have said that they will get the intensity of economy down by 45%, which is, I think, great. They said that we'll touch the 45%. Initially, they had promised about 33 to 35%, but now they are saying in the latest that we'll do it by 45%. That's one big thing. The second thing was that they had promised initially that 40% of our energy would be from renewables by 2030. But then again, India has raised its ambition, and now it is saying that we are going to have 50% of our energy. Instead of 40, 50% will be from clean energy. So these are some very good things. I think the only thing probably India has to work on is that to see how they can get rid of coal as fast as possible, because that is the only one big problem which we might face, because that's very bad for air quality, very bad for the people of the country. So that's something, but otherwise India is doing extremely well in terms of, like, they're very ambitious. The targets are there. I don't know whether we'll be able to achieve them, but at least the ambition is there. At least they want to do it.
Exactly.
Otherwise, the many countries are putting very vague targets. Like they can't be measured, they can't be and unless you have a good roadmap, we are not going anywhere. Like you can't reach 250 if you can't reach 230. So it's as simple as that.
Okay, so the world is pushing towards carbon-free cities. This is a term that we are hearing a lot. Like I'm reading it in the IPCC reports, I'm listening in the YouTube. What does it mean? And they are making it sound so simple, but I'm sure, is it that simple?
Yes, it's building, when you're building a policy, when you're making it, so these things are there, but when you start working on them, they are complex, because as I said right in the beginning, it's all about finance. Like you need a lot of money to do all these transformations. But this is a fact. Actually, why cities are on the radar of people is because, the world is moving towards cities. In 2004, I think it was 50% of the world started living in cities. And by 250, they say, I think 2/3 of the world will be living in cities. Even in India, it's growing very fast. Like we are over 30% now, and I think will be 50% by 2050. So cities are the places where people are going to stay more. Like more and more people will be coming to cities to stay. Now cities have an advantage. They have a lot of disadvantages. I know you people must be thinking, but yeah, we do have an advantage. Like people are staying very close by, so it's easier to give them facilities, like whether it's energy, whether it's piped gas, whether it is water, like looking after sanitation, like waste management. Like all these things are easier to do because it's a compact. You are living in a small place.
Yeah.
So cities are critical actually to, in case if we have to solve this problem of climate change, because the number one thing is if we can, cities are also energy guzzlers. Like villages don't use that much of energy like the city people use. So in case if we can transform the setup for the cities into clean energy cities, like for example, if you have solar panels, you have wind panels, or if you have these for transition, even if you have gas plants giving energy, and so what will happen is that the grid will get cleaned and the people will start having clean energy, so the pollution will be less because of the coal plants and all these things, and you'll also have an immediately fall in the, you can say, emission level. So this has becomes part of like cities, like cleaner cities or carbon smart city, I would say, call it. Then the second thing is in cities is the transportation, because people do a lot of transportation. They are really moving, and thousands, and a city like New Delhi, Mumbai, 20 million plus people have to be moved every day. They are moving somewhere. So how do you build transportation is crucial. Like I've seen in Delhi, like in last 20 years, how things have totally changed. Like today, it's choco block everywhere, and the kind of the emissions we have is very high. So moving towards again cleaner vehicles like electric vehicles, moving towards in the transit, moving towards more hybrid, more low cost like BS6. So all these things like smart cities would be looking at how do you transport so many people comfortably and also with low emissions. So that's something they're looking at. It should not be so difficult. Like example, and especially young people, they love doing the social media while they're traveling. So many of them don't want to drive. They say, oh, rather take a cab or take a bus or a metro, so I can also keep up with my social messaging all the time at that time. So this is again an incentive, I would say, for young people. So I think mobility would be crucial. Like, but people have to move, and that too comfortably and safely. So this is something again. So energy grid, the transportation part of it, then the waste again. City generates a lot of waste, so that waste can also be collected properly, segregated and taken to these places. Again, a third component is the waste management. Like in cities, people are living close by, a lot of waste is being generated. And this is a very complex waste which is being generated. It could be plastics, it'll have paper, it'll have food waste and all those things. So again, it is possible how we can take this all waste and use it in a way that it is again emissions are reduced. This again, and this is possible now. Like if you, I'll give you a very interesting example. You can Google it, of the Indore city, which has becoming the smart city for I think a couple of years. They're coming number one. Look at their waste management, how they're doing it. The wonderful way they're doing it. So there is a possibility. It's not that this is all hypothetical. It is possible. And of course, the fourth thing is increasing green spaces, because green spaces inside the city are very important. And in case if you have a lot of, like if you have a garden nearby house, if you have a small clump of trees, like a green patch near your house, it's very calming. You can go for a walk, you can go for a play, you can go for a game, and you can also, so that has a calming effect. And also it reduces the heat island effect, which we are suffering now in climate change. You see the temperature of the city goes up. The temperature of the city is about 2 degrees higher than the surroundings. So that's again, a heat island effect will get destroyed, or like will get cured. Like if you have green, like chota, if you have small forests and you have small water bodies, like if you have small lakes, even if it are artificial lakes, they help in reducing the temperature. So these are some of the natural things we are looking at in the cities. So it will become more aesthetic also. Like you will have a water body, you will have some trees around you in the city. So this will help. Plus also it is good for the climate.
Does that happen in Delhi, that the temperature goes higher?
Yeah. Delhi suffers from heat island effect. And it's very easy. Like if you want to just experience it, any of these days, you just take a bike, take a bike and start moving from Connaught Place and go towards south of Delhi, Mehrauli, Sanjay 1 and all. You will see the temperature drop as soon as you enter that Mehrauli region. It'll drop by about 1 or 2 degrees, start feeling cold. Especially if you're in the evening part, evening 7 o'clock after sunset, if you do. By the time you are in Hajj Khas and in this area, it'll be nice and warm. And then as soon as you go inside the Sanjay 1 area, Mehrauli area, the temperature drops. So this is heat island effect. And if you have a water body nearby, it's even better. Like it helps in controlling the temperature.
Let's talk about technology.
Mhm.
Apart from EVs, what kind of technology are you seeing in this region, like climate change? Because we've been hearing like, okay, EVs are going to be the change makers in transportation. But apart from this, what are other sort of technology that you're seeing?
A lot of technologies are today under development, like you can say, because
Under
development. Because I wouldn't say any tech at present. The most solid technology which is working in climate change helpful is the tree. It gets the maximum amount of carbon dioxide it's absorbing, oxygen it is giving.
The
So
natural
nature's,
best technology.
that's the best. Still nobody is able to beat it. But yeah, there are technologies which are, we will have to work on technology, because without technological breakthrough, yes, definitely we will again be in trouble in coming times. And that's where the role of youth will also come. We need a lot of innovative ideas. We need people to really think about, because the problem is so big and wide.
Yeah.
Emissions which are a lot of work is going on how to pull out emissions from atmosphere also, to reach that net zero part of it. That how do you reduce, like one thing is mitigating, don't emit carbon dioxide, that's one part of it. And what do you do with so much of carbon in the atmosphere? How do you take it out? That's another aspect where a lot of people are working, where they're trying to see how they can like either take the air, put it through precipitators so that carbon is removed, or there carbon sequestering technologies are there, where you take coming out, like for example, you burn trees, like as you use biomass for you use biomass for producing electricity, and then the carbon dioxide is going to go out, you capture that, you don't allow that carbon dioxide to escape and put it in earth or somewhere, you store it. So that way how you're basically now you're reducing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Wow.
So there are a lot of technologies like this working. Of course, transportation, as I said, waste management, a lot of technologies are people are working on how to handle waste better. And then a lot of technologies are on the rise on how to hydrogen as a technology, like hydrogen in terms of transportation, energy, storage of batteries. So hydrogen is again going to be a whole realm of energy. Like a lot of work is also going on nuclear plants these days. Basically nuclear fission and fusion, both we have. The fusion is again a scientific concept which is now becoming more and more real. It's like the technology the sun runs on, though it's again 30-40 years down, but probably if you put in a lot of money and these things, time and innovation, so we will have the technologies in coming times. Technology is going to be very important part of the matrix, part of the solution matrix which we are looking at, because technology is going to help us in understanding how we can pull out the carbon from atmosphere and also replace a lot of those things, like for example, as I told you, cement and steel. When we are making these things, how can we replace these processes, because they are basically carbon intensive processes. So if we get innovation where we can do all this work without these things, will definitely help in both in mitigation as well as pulling out carbon from the atmosphere in coming time. So technology is going to play a very big role.
Very interesting. One thing that I was really curious about, okay, so in Pakistan, floods happened, right?
Yeah.
About 1/3 of the country was drowned.
Yeah.
But those floods didn't actually happen in India. What was the reason behind that?
That's the reason I'm telling you. That is exactly the extreme events we are talking about. They're localized. The extreme events are different from cyclones. Cyclones you can predict, this is the trajectory of the cyclones moving from this side to this side. But extreme events today, this what you call, can happen anywhere. This localized, like what had happened, as I said, in Uttarakhand in 2013, or what happened in Chennai. Similarly, events happened in like the monsoon came in Pakistan, and that normal monsoon basically got intensified because of the extreme, became an extreme event. Like for example, the monsoon went on and on for 8 weeks, and they had more than double the amount of precipitation happening. So literally 1/3 of the country was underwater. And I think the whole part of, I think south part of the Pakistan was in a very, very bad shape, and they are, I think, down by more than $30 billion, I think, in the reconstruction cost. So this is localized event. So that's why I say it can happen anywhere.
Wow. Can we predict these localized events, or these extreme events just happen?
No, these now the science is again getting very advanced. Like we are able to track the cyclones very well. The extreme events you can also know, but the time to react would be very little. You will only understand it when it starts happening. Like you might get a 12-hour notice. You might see that things are getting it might happen, it might not happen, because still we are trying to, you can say, streamline the science behind it. Still there are a lot of variables in weather prediction. So people know that, for example, these things can happen, but exactly they can't be predicted that this is going to happen this day and this time. This still can't be. Like cyclone, you can track, and once it's formed you can follow it, but the extreme events you just can't track it. But you can, because of the low pressure getting at a place and the conditions being right, there are chances, but the prediction is getting better. And of course, but still, as I say, this is work in process.
Yeah.
Like we are trying to understand, the science is trying to understand the monsoon pattern, especially for our part of the world. But still there's no, you can say, nobody can say 100% that this is going to happen on this date and time. This is not the way. You can only say that the probability of this happening is high. That is how it's. The weather is all about probability. Like, I think there's an old joke, that people used to say that if the weather station says it's going to rain, then it will not rain, it'll be sunshine. And it says sunshine, it'll be take your umbrella.
Yeah.
So we have moved out from those times. Now it's very accurate. The IMD and like in our predictions are very good. They are able to tell well in advance. But exactly how much is going to happen, that nobody can still predict. Like the overstaying of monsoon, you just can't predict beforehand. But yes, we will, as you rightly said, we will have to change our like we have charts, like we have charts for weather, which advise all the farmers like when to do the sowing and what to do all the things. Now the time is coming that serious thoughts are going on how to change those charts, because it's happening continuously. Like June is, you're not getting that showers which you used to get initially. September is no, October it's now going back. So probably we will have to work on the charts in coming times and how these events are going to happen.
One question I have is, if you had, like, from your experience, if you had to look at a technological breakthrough personally, what would it be? Like something that you think of seeing all this, the climate change, climate emergency. What would be one like technological breakthrough that you would want to create?
I think the biggest technological breakthrough would be, because the biggest problem with climate change is the energy part of it. How do we generate clean energy? Because that can have effect on all the things. Like once you have clean energy coming, you can use it for producing, you can use it as a source, you can use it as a fuel. Energy can be used in so many ways. Heating, everything is energy based. So yes, definitely, if we have a utopian tomorrow, we have a solar panel which is 100% efficient, or which has a very high efficiency like 80-90%. Today they work at 25%. So they take a lot of space.
Okay.
So tomorrow, if we have solar panels which are working at say 70% capacity, or you have other technologies which are very efficient and they have very low emission, because it's a trade-off between emissions. Like, so that is something probably which will be great for the economy. You will have endless amount, and then it can flow to everywhere, to EVs, to energy, to housing, to powering, because our world has developed on energy. If you look at how the world has come through, initially we were using sticks and stones. We learned how to use fire. Then after fire, we learned how to use bullock carts. We started using animals for energy. Then we started using horses for energy, and then we finally shifted to coal and steam, and that's how the graph just keeps going up. And now we know, so more energy, the more development, more energy is required. And so very important thing which I feel is that GDP up till now in the globally, if you see the world GDP, it's linked to the emissions. So there's a time now we have to decouple it. The GDP should keep growing because we need more goods and services. Like we need more people have to be lifted out of poverty, and people need a good life. But the emissions should start falling. So that's I think my dream of if we can have those technologies which can totally decouple the growth with the emissions. Today they are both following each other.
Yeah.
So in a lot of countries they have been able to decouple, but absolute decoupling would be, I think, an ideal situation.
Amazing. I think the last question for today would be, what would your suggestion be for us youngsters? Like right now, I think I am a little more educated. We all are a little more educated about climate change. But what would be like the micro steps that we can take, or books, or some resources where we can actually start to really understand the depth of this issue?
Well, I think I would restrict my advice to the younger generation, because they are much better than me in finding out information. Like what it takes me 1 hour to research, they do it in 5 minutes on the Google, and they can make a report, much better report. So I think today the information is available. So I think there's no paucity of information. You have, as young people, you have access to a lot of information. So yes, go through it, understand. If you have the doubts, go through it, understand it, see what's climate change. And what I feel is that I think a personal behavior, that is something crucial which is going to be in coming times. For as young people, I think looking for green jobs, finding out jobs which are more satisfying, like wherever you're working as a young person, if you can see how you can make that job, do that job better in terms of lesser emissions, how you can make it more greener. So this is something which a person, like I'm working at a pizza store, probably I can work on that. I'm working in an IT company, I can look at my carbon footprint. If I'm, so wherever you're working, your carbon footprint, look at it, probably can it be reduced? Can I do it better than that? So probably this is the innovation we'll be looking at in coming times. And of course, there's some small housekeeping things like looking after the energy part of it. Like if you can afford it, go for clean energy. Switching off lights, very important. A lot of young people, they don't switch off lights. So switching off your lights. We use so many digital devices. Switching off those digital devices when not in use. You know, one of the biggest consumer of electricity today is that humble, what you call that, what you have, the power transformer we put in, our charger for our phones.
Oh.
So if you let it be there and switch it on all the time, only using it, so then switching off devices is very crucial. Then of course taking part in things like waste segregation, which is again something which can be done at personal level, trying to see how my consumption patterns are, being more responsible consumer, asking for less packaging.
Is eating meat an issue?
Yes, I will not say that stop eating meat, but I will definitely say if you can reduce it, it will be wonderful. And if you can give it all together, nothing like it if you become a vegetarian, because meat has a very high carbon footprint and water footprint, whatever you want to call it. So eating less meat would definitely help. It'll definitely help as far as the behavioral change. And even more important than eating meat, I would say, is wastage of food. A lot of people today, since the incomes are increasing and the young people are definitely much more richer than my generation were, so a lot of food gets wasted. Like you eat half pizza goes to the bin, half burger eaten, half goes to the bin. So that concept somehow has to change, because you know, to grow those fruits, those vegetables, those cereals, so much of emissions has taken place, and now that has gone to the landfill. So that's straight away you are taking those emissions to the landfill. So, and there are a lot of hungry people in this world. So I think wastage of food is a crucial item, and if we can somehow get this emissions down, yeah, of course, meat is one, and of course wastage of food. If we can reduce the kind of food wastage, that will again really help. So this is very something very personal, like I would say. And then of course, yeah, the way you transport, like the mobility, like how you move around, probably making good choices, probably metros, electric vehicles, cycles, walking, all things. The walking is even good for health. So all these choices are for the young people are going to be crucial, because I think in the past, like we have been, like in the past 20, 30 years, all the messaging was all around mobility, and everything is based on consumption. Consumption, whether you have to buy a new car, you have to buy a new house, and everything was consumer based. So now I think we should sit back and think and ask ourselves, do I need this? Like if I'm going to wear 10, I have a 10 jackets, probably I've not worn them for a year. Do I need them? So, and of course, as I said, innovation, like you people will be working, young people will be working in different industries. Like I was so happy, I just went to this Odisha, Bhubaneswar, and they're the NIFT. I was talking to the NIFT students out there and the young people, they're designers. And you know, after fossil fuel, this is the second industry. Fashion industry is the second big polluter. And they're already thinking of how sustainably they can build fashion. They're already working on organic dyes, and they're working on how they can change the fashion, the yarn, everything. So that's what the thing is all about. I'm very hopeful that the young people, especially since they're working in particular regions, they're free of those burdens. They are the ones, I think, who are going to figure out like how do we work in a more sustainable fashion for the coming future. So I think there's a big scope, and I think we should not get depressed about the climate message. I know is very depressing, but I think we should not get depressed, because, and the biggest, I think I'll tell you is this, my hope factor I have is that when COVID started, the pandemic started in 2020. So I was talking to my friends and all were saying, yo, this is end of the world. It takes 20 years to develop a vaccine. So 20 years gone.
Hmm.
So the world is finished.
Hmm.
But in 1 year's time, science was able to come out with a solution, COVID, and here we are talking today.
Yeah.
We are already, the situation is getting normal globally. So there's a lot of potential. I think now we have to just focus. The young people have to focus. The money has to come. The the focus has to be on climate change. I think what's happening because of this now, Ukraine war and all this happening, a lot of focus has gone away from climate change. Where the need is of the hour is now that we have to really work seriously on climate change, because it'll help us in removing poverty, it'll help us in removing a lot of other things. So I think that is the last what I would like to say. Let's focus more and be hopeful.
Definitely. Well, thank you for those powerful words, and thank you for being on the show. It's been an absolute delight, and thank you for enlightening us on this entire topic. Honestly, I feel like a lot more hopeful as well. But on that note, let's end this episode of this talk. Thank you so much, Aditya, for being here. Um, and thank you for everyone for
Yeah.
listening.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. Thank you so much.